Here's what it's really like in a small town, Mr. Aldean. Because not all people live the same life. In a small town, my mother was a cocaine addict. My father as well. My dad sold cocaine, so he went to prison when I want to say, I don't much remember anything before I was 4. My mom couldn't have custody of us because she couldn't stay off of the cocaine. That's the view out my window. It's beautiful, isn't it? Parts of it anyway. Quaint. This isn't Chapel, Nebraska. Chapel, Nebraska, that's my first taste of a small town. Erie, Colorado was small when I lived there as a kid. That was the 1980s. I got to go visit my mom on home visits, and that wasn't very often. I grew up in the temporary foster care system because my mom kept wanting to say she was going to get custody of us. But she couldn't stay off the cocaine. By the time I moved to Chapel, Nebraska, I'd grown up in cities. Denver, a lot of the surrounding area.
Hello? I was just wondering what was going on, making sure everybody was safe.
It was just a couple of people over at the library screaming into the corner so they could hear the echo. Mr. Aldean, there's over 100 recordings on my YouTube channel with my friends or family or people who tried to help me about people threatening to kill them and their families. Small towns. Small towns' popularity is what counts. Your money is what counts. When I moved to Chapel, Nebraska to live with my mom, I was 15 years old. I lived in Tacoma, Washington. Just prior to that, I went to Lincoln High School. It's a 81% minority high school. Prior to that, I grew up with a bunch of black kids, Asian kids, and Hispanic kids, primarily. I was raised primarily by staff and institutions foster families, some of them good, some of them real bad. Temporary foster care system, you only get 2 weeks per foster home. Eventually they run out of foster homes. Or they keep on promising you, and mind you, you're still a kid, okay? You're just a kid. By the time I moved to Nebraska, I wasn't that 7-year-old who had to go through all of that. I was a 15-year-old who had survived all of that. And my mom, me hoping that whatever it was that was wrong with my mom growing up, it wasn't really a problem. My mom asked me if I knew where to get some cocaine my second day in Nebraska. I'm different. I wink my eyes weird, and I do weird stuff with my wrists. I come from a family that's got a history of doing drugs, and of course, in a small town, your family's guilty, you're guilty. Guilt by association. Oh, you're poor? Well, tough luck, you must be guilty. Going to the hospital. Going to the hospital is no fucking fun, because in a small town, there's no hospital. This place here has a little rinky-dink hospital. It's basically an oversized clinic. There's a few buildings throughout the town. I'd venture to say this is a small city. With the same ignorant redneck mentality as we've come to expect everywhere. But it's odd because the property here is so expensive. These old redneck kids driving around in brand new Dodge, lifted tires. Primarily them, the farm kids. You want to tell us they worked harder for it? You know, I fed my little brother and my little sister through high school because my mom was useless. And my stepdad was hardly ever there. He was working elsewhere. While he was working elsewhere, he was getting complained at. Or that he wasn't spending enough time at home. So he quit a job, come back home, become an electrician. And then she has all sorts of stuff she wants him to buy, so he's cutting corners on his business to make her happy. I'm autistic and I have Tourette syndrome. I have Asperger's, which is a very specific type of autism. When people abuse you and you try to tell on them and they have a position of power. When they have a position of power, it hurts. When you have to travel 30 minutes to the nearest hospital, you're in a small town. Actually in a small town. When your small town has a medical research center named after somebody famous, you're not a small fucking town. In a small town, you're a lot more likely to be killed by your parents. As an autistic person, you're a lot more likely to be taken advantage of. As somebody with Tourette syndrome, you're extremely likely to be treated like you're a drug addict, especially when you're scared. What do you have to be afraid of, you might ask? Assumptions. People like to jump to conclusions and they like to paraphrase. But not just paraphrase, improperly paraphrase. People also don't like being shown up. It's a matter of pride. I was trying to hand over literally everything that the police would need to convict not only Natalie's predators, but also mine. Maybe you should look up the name Natalie Bollinger. That might help you get to see how hated I am. You should go through the search history based on months. Now, you might get stuck on my channel and my anger and hatred. Realize there's a lot of videos that I just talk in. That's because I don't have a friend or family member that is going to help me turn this in, and I'm hoping that one of you will hear this and understand what an emergency it really is. You get to listen to that Mr. Aldean feller, and you get to read the comments of his supporters, and I tell you, if homeless people say that shit, you arrest them for making terroristic threats. Should the homeless be allowed to shoot people over property? That's the thing about the 13th Amendment and how horribly misused it's been, as well as the Second Amendment. When it comes to the First Amendment, well, I have the right to speak. I just don't have the ability to be heard. You don't take it seriously. I have to deal with a lot of actual addicts out here, and to be treated like I'm an addict because I help addicts is fucked up. A lot of these people, they've been recorded explaining that I'm not schizophrenic, and they didn't understand why that was important. And I tried to explain to them the protocols the cops use when one of them commits a felony, when one of them assumes, and it ends up getting innocent people killed. How many police officers did I go to before Natalie was killed? How many police officers did Natalie go to before she was killed? When her friends and family made my life a living hell, what did I do? These people were actually threatening to kill my friends and family, actually physically assaulting me. People like Tim Beeson wanted to get a hold of me repeatedly and threatened to kill me and my friends and family. On the phone, on the internet. Then there's the multiple fake accounts to harass me. But it's wrong if I make an account to beg someone to put a stop to it. Isn't that right? Of course it is. How about if I make a fake account so I can destroy mine? Because I don't want my predators being harmed after I'm dead. I didn't want Natalie Bollinger and Alicia Bollinger and Maddie Boa to be harmed by my loved ones or theirs for the rest of their life. But it doesn't make any difference. Those people did so anyway. Y'all whine about poor people, and you think the cops are supposed to help us. No, they just come and get rid of us for you. When you claim that you just want us to get help, and you've assumed it's mental health, you've assumed it's rehab. No, it's fucking jail, stupid. Why do you fucking assume that we're all on drugs? In a small town, when you're different, you have to explain to people that you're different so they don't just beat you up all the time. In a small town, you have to be worried about who you have a crush on, because it might be a cousin. In a small town, you absolutely have to worry about what other people think. And in a small town, nobody cares if it's true. In a small town, you're expected to pretend if a cop said it, it must be the truth. In a small town, when you're abused, if you're a female, you might get help. You probably get help from other men in town. And you probably have support from people who tell you to go to the police or offer to go to the police with you. When you're a boy, you're told to let it go. Every time. But I'm also at risk of being abused. Because I'm different, because I have Tourette syndrome, because of people's assumptions, because of their inability to listen. People hear the disabled part and assume stupid for some odd reason. I got bad habits. I get a government check for being disabled now. But I can't function. It's because I'm stuck out here. My whole channel is full of drug addicts and schizophrenics. There's some real delusional folks on my channel. Out here on the streets, yeah, that's what long-term drug use does to people. So I make sure I stay away from the drugs. Does that matter? No. And then we get to hear from the small town people, most of whom smoke pot, okay? Nationwide, small town people do smoke pot. Church-going people nationwide smoke pot. We get to hear how alcohol's legal in a small town. Over 50% of the murders in this country are committed by people who are on alcohol, specifically alcohol. Small towns and all that. In small towns, you don't have protests. Try that in a small town, motherfucker. You'd murder people for protesting in a small town? That would get your town burnt to the ground. That would 100% get your town burnt to the ground. America's not going to tolerate murder. But you want to promote murder against people who are having their houses torched, bulldozed, having everything that they worked for yanked out from underneath them because, well, the reality of it is, small towns take care of who's popular, not who's right, not who's good, not who's righteous, not who's just. In a small town, you don't have a police department to go to. This Tillamook ain't a small town. In a small town, you got a grand total of the sheriff's department to go to. In a small town, they ain't got no services, so they can send you to another jurisdiction. In a small town, the term mentally ill means Jeffrey Dahmer. In a small town, it means crazy person. In a small town, it means irrational. No, what's irrational is that you've got a perfectly functional human being who listens to you when you have struggles and you need help and you're trying to get help. And they actually help you. That's what many of us are expected to be as men. As homeless men or disabled men, we are expected to do far more to show that we're at least worthy of being treated as a human being. When a homeless person needs to sit down and make a police report, bullying them into another county is not okay. Forcing them to stay with alcoholics is not okay. What else is there in a small town? Judgmental Christians. And most of those Christians are alcoholics in small towns. Like, the alcoholism rate in small towns is massive. So look at these country singers. They're singing about the glories of beer and whiskey. And that right there, that's why women get beaten in those areas more often than in the city. It's your husbands who do it, your mothers who do it, your fathers who do it when they're fucking drunk. So you cope with it by getting drunk. You become an alcoholic and you do the same shit to your fucking kids. Small towns. Small towns, family name is fucking important. If you got a bad family name, oh, you have no idea. My family did not have a good family name. My mom thought that she could try to improve the family name by going to church. But also, she just talked trash about her kids all the time. Wasted her husband's money. Wasted it on things that didn't feed us. Yeah, I had a job when I moved to Nebraska. My job was in Sidney, Nebraska, 30 miles away. Gas was not a cheap thing at the time. Later it got more expensive and less expensive, but I had to pay for gas to go. That's fine. I had to do it only after school. That's fine. And I got these farm boys wanting to tell me that they got this nice new pickup and that they earned it. They earned it in the summer. Or they earned it as their winter job as a rancher, working for their dad. They earned it. Not so much. You got lucky. You got parents that had the ability and the money to waste on such things. You're lucky that your parents took care of you and your siblings, paid for your food, paid for your medical insurance. In a small town, when somebody's different, especially if they're from elsewhere, especially if they stick up for blacks or Mexicans, they're not well liked. That's nationwide. I tend to gravitate towards people who are not hateful people. But many times it just ends up being the people who are able to hide it the best. A lot of people are verbally abusive to me, physically abusive to me. I'm told I just need to shut up about it. I'm also the easiest person to victimize because all you gotta do is say mentally ill. You can literally shoot me just by calling me mentally ill. You get to see how my stuff has been taken, apparently legally, over and over again, by literally the people that I have to try to turn in. I tried to turn in corruption in a small town in Chapel, Nebraska. Also, the abuse from alcoholism. How frequent and prevalent it is, and how many of those children are actually being abused. Amy Spencer's kids, or Amy Cleany Kingery's, were absolutely being abused. You goddamn right I told on their abusers. 6 times. 6 times before I had to break the law to get those girls safe. It was a hard decision. Ran Ingersoll shouldn't have been hitting. Small town of Rawlins, Wyoming. Sorta. They got a jail and a prison there. They actually have to have a hospital local because of that. Did you know that? Just a little dinky thing. Basically a clinic. In a small town, once you've been given the label of mentally ill, it's, oh, that's just crazy Sean. There's a video with my mental health worker in Nebraska, Marcia Estrada. She explains I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not delusional. That I got post-traumatic stress disorder, probably from the way I grew up. Oh, there ain't no doubt about that. Knowing that your voice is never going to be heard. And the things people are allowed to do to you and your loved ones. But if I ever, at any point, react back, would they treat me? I'm treated like a horrible monster. You know what I do now? I scream and hoot and holler and curse. And call all sorts of nasty names because that's how you and your peoples deal with this. By assuming guilt and going out of your way not to understand. You don't want to see poverty, so you allow our homes to be torched, our things to be looted, and nobody cares. You just call us mentally ill and tell us we should go to a therapist. You need to get help. Small towns are bully playgrounds. And a great place for manipulators who want to pretend they believe in God. Small towns are cruel places when you're poor. So why live in a small town when you're poor? Because in a small town, nobody wants to live there. So the rent's cheaper than everywhere else. Sure, you're a lot more likely to be beaten or raped. You're a lot more likely to be murdered. They're less likely to find the culprit. Guilt is just assumed based on the rumor mill in whatever town you happen to be in America. What's it really like in
Oh
a
no.
small town? That
Oh no.
depends on who you are.
Oh,
You alright?
crap. I locked my door. I can't get in.
Oh, shit.
Oh, I can't believe I did that.
Whew.
Oh my god. I don't know how. This is what to do. I can't believe that. I checked the back door and shut it. Idiot.
It's friggin' expensive to.
Guess I have to call locksmith.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh no, he can't even get in it that way. Oh, they hit lock. Oh,
Oh, right, yes.
usually with the fuse out, it didn't work. Today it does. Well, I'm gonna unlock this before I try anything else.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
praise God. Oh man. I just don't open this one because I'm gonna lock them. See, now it won't do anything. But that's probably because the door shut. I don't care. God, okay. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Well, I am totally glad it opened.
Oh, so am I. Oh, I've had a horrible 2 days. But so far today started off good and we got rotten. But now it's getting better. Now I'm going to go take some stuff to put in storage.
Yes, ma'am.
If I don't lock the door, I'll have it made.
I gotta go take stuff to storage too,
Oh.
but my storage is upstairs and I can't get up there
So is
anymore.
mine. I'm going to take a few things today, a few things until I get it all up there. After went in up there with him and then went out and put on the padlock, I just couldn't do it. And I didn't get to the library. I'm going to go probably do a couple loads of bags. So, oh well.
I got a whole camp full of stuff up in the mountains that,
Oh.
I paid some people to help me and they didn't.
Yeah, my stuff's been in my car since November, and I'm ready to have it in something else. And my job's supposed to start tomorrow. If not, I've wasted so much of money that I don't have for gas now. But well, I had to do something.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I got a question for you.
Okay.
I'd get disability money, but I need somebody to make calls with me because for guys, we're automatically blown off unless there's
Right.
a friend or family member who's there with us. We're just talked over. But I got a whole bunch of places that I have to call to make sure that I'm able to keep all of my resources. But I also can pay some of what I get paid for somebody to help me with that.
Okay, so tomorrow I gotta be in a meeting and then I go out and talk to the people I'm gonna work for. And I will be off on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. Every week.
All right. Well, I hope you get the job.
Well, I've already got it. It's your Easter sales, and Easter sales is going to pay them for me to work for them. So they're going to say, okay, yeah, no problem. They already have people through Easter sales working on it.
What's that? What do they do?
Habitat.
Habitat for Humanity?
Uh-huh. Yeah, they just, we used to have 2 people that was with us at Helping Hands was on it. So they left, so I got to. But it's been 4 months of her not coming here to do it. And finally she's come tomorrow. I promise, no matter what. And I keep looking and no email from her, so I'm taking her for her word this week.
Almost everybody who I've talked to that was out at Helping Hands said that it's real pretty looking place on the inside, but
No,
that
it's
it's
not.
really oriented towards heroin addicts.
No, actually, I don't think there was any heroin addicts when I was out there. It was mostly meth.
Mostly meth?
Yeah, but they come and go, so maybe when they were there, it was. Now, the cops will bring people, I don't know, unless they tell us what they're on, usually most of them don't do that. The ones that were meth heads, they actually admit to it.
Well, for me, people kept on having me go to the Helping Hands thing. It wasn't explained to me how expensive it is to live out there. And with how much?
$250 a month.
$250 a month? All right, that's cheaper than what the other lady told me. She told me she was paying $400.
Oh, now Uncle Walt's house, that's $400 a month for from day one. Helping Hands, the first 30 days is free. And then after getting the program after 30 days, if you pass your test, and then every month past it is 250. It used to be 300 the first month, and then 50 after that. But they just started 50.
Well, one of the things that keeps running me ragged is having to live in my car with all my stuff and having to pay people who are unreliable.
Right, and they actually had more room for men there than they do women. Only because there's more men than women there, so they made them into men.
My problem was when I first came to town, the cops decided to be douchebags about a couple of situations with stalkers. And I got the whole runaround at every single service because I had to go by myself. And they committed a lot of misdemeanors and felonies, and I recorded it.
Told me that.
So for me to try to go anywhere alone now is basically like hanging myself.
And Helping Hands is actually a place that the cops only come there when we call them. They send a roster every night to the police department so they know everybody that's there at that time. And so if you have a warrant or something, they're going to come get you, of course. But they tell them that when they come. So if you sign this paper and stuff, we're sending a roster tonight. And probably by the time you walk out of that office, it's going to be sent because you're your new name.
Oh, they know my vehicle, and part of the playing mentally ill tag thing is you don't mess with the victim at all.
Right.
You basically ignore the victim and you let the public continue to fuck with them until they have a mental breakdown.
Yeah, now,
and then
I do believe out there you have to be one of Bree's pets to not be harassed.
You have to have what?
To be Brianne's pet. Someone that she really likes or you would really kiss her ass.
Yes, ma'am.
And but you have money, so you could probably pay the $250. I did not. I was gonna leave after my first 30 days. Oh no, your next account will pay for it. It always has. Well, I got turned down into my second month. She told me to go to all the churches and ask for money, even anything. And I could say, no, I had to get my karate, so nobody gave me nothing. And then I had a phone call for a home care worker job, and I said, okay, we good through Friday when I go to the interview. And she goes, oh yeah. And then on Tuesday, I hadn't heard. I went to the interview. The lady wasn't there. She didn't clean. She wouldn't answer the phone, and I just said screw it. And so she goes, well, yeah, by Tuesday if you don't go get some money. So I went back to the. They didn't even open the doors the second time. They wouldn't answer the phone the second time. They're different places. And every time I went back and told her what they said, and so she told me that I had to writing on Tuesday, and so Wednesday she came in and asked the person that works for him that's also there. They got you that place. But are you going to go to the mandatory meeting or are you sticking with this one?
Sorry, that thing is way too loud. I can't hear anything except.
Yeah, and I gotta go or I'm not gonna get anything done in storage.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
I'll be here on Monday.
Yes, ma'am. The stuff that people were telling me about all these different places, for the most part, the people who have been there have been honest. The way they've been with a lot of these services. I was warned about all of these services when I first got here,
Right.
and how they operate and how they work. And I went through all these services, and I did record all of it every step of the way.
And if you want to try Helping Hands again, you have to get a referral. Carol can do it, a psychiatrist or a counselor. Of course, the cops can get out of jail.
The Helping Hands ain't the place for me.
Yeah, all they do is you have to go to class and do a chore. They don't really do much.
From
But
what?
I was homeless, and so they were giving me a place to sleep.
Yep, and that's
But I
exactly.
still had to do their program.
That's exactly
I'm
it.
fine with that.
For me, I have a lot on my plate,
Yeah.
and there's
We
the
only go to 4 meetings a week, and most of them are 15 to 30 minutes. And then 3 nights a week it's an hour.
there's the fact that I've been here for 7 months and I've got nothing but 10 months, sorry, and I've gotten nothing but the runaround since I got here. So I mean, yeah, going to Helping Hands again is about like chewing on my own toes. It's not going to get me what I need. And that's the thing about being disabled and out here and a male is that, all right, first of all, I'm a male. I'm supposed to be fine and dandy. I don't look disabled.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of guys out there that are in the same position as you
Yeah.
are. Except they're probably more mentally than you are. Because you know what to do, even though you can't stop what's happening to you.
Exactly.
Like Shane, I think you probably know him. He walks up here and down here. Today he wasn't screaming, but usually he's hollering stupid things. He must be on his meds this time. So, but he was out there and he was just off the hook, and they weren't going to kick him out no matter what he did. And finally, he did some stuff that they just couldn't overlook. He did it on purpose, I think. And he just wasn't ready to walk out on the mountain.
Well, they've got the mandated reporter training. They've also got de-escalation training, and they also know when it is that not at Helping Hands, but at the other services. But at all these other services, they're supposed to have that training by law, by federal law and Oregon law. And they're all literally lying to me about what the law says because they don't want to do their job. Literally, what they're supposed to do, if they're going to call me mentally ill to try to discredit me, what that's doing is it's showing that they broke the law by, if somebody who is mentally ill comes to them and tells them that a crime has been committed against them, they have to investigate it immediately.
Working for the state and home care, if I see a child or an elderly person, I am for 24 hours, 7 days a week, reporter. And in California, you have to go up and intervene, even if you get hurt, it doesn't matter. I think that's crazy. Because if they're killing somebody, you're not going to stop them. I mean, you're right. Get killed yourself. But I mean, if you walk up and they're just starting the talking and stuff, that's different. I don't have a problem with that. I think 911 is the smartest thing to do. You got to go over and talk to them.
You're a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the toughest part. Like, and there's a lot of, don't get me wrong about this, because I know a lot of women who had professional positions before they ended up homeless, and once they become homeless, it's a completely different experience. So yeah, I'm not trying to diminish any of the stuff that happens to women out here on the streets, because I've seen it. But as far as the mandated reporter stuff, I need somebody who has your knowledge, who actually cares. They're not looking at the evidence. They're wanting to word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth. That's illegal. The police have refused to look at the evidence by sending me to mental health and telling mental health that I'm nuts. Mental health refuses to look at evidence and tells me that it's not their job to investigate. I need to go to the police. Well, the police are the ones who sent me to them.
Well, then they need to see if you are mentally ill, or if any of this stuff could be true. But you're right. If they're reporters, they're supposed to report it if they want to or not.
They're supposed to do it immediately, even if it's a friend, even if it's a coworker, especially if it's a coworker. And that's where I'm having to deal with. This is a bunch of small town people. They're all friends with each other. They are friends with each other. I mean, I have people from these different agencies telling me, well, I'm going to have my friend on the police force. And then it's literally one of the officers who blew me off. Or they tell me, I want you to go talk to Joy at CARE. She's a friend of mine. And then I've already talked to Joy at CARE, and she's the one that sent me to Seniors and Disabilities. And Senior and Disabilities lady was telling me she's friends with Joy. Well, great. I know who's friends with everybody in this entire town now. So basically, instead of you doing your job as a mandated reporter, I know the whole town gossip. Yeah, I know everybody's town gossip, who's with who's sleeping with who's humping who's doing whose drugs, and who in these different agencies are doing drugs even. It's insane.
Yeah, because you record everything.
Because I record everything, that's right.
That's why they're giving you the runaround. Because if you do find somebody that will listen to you, they're all in trouble.
And that's what I've been trying to say. But I also, I do act like my predators online. I will curse. I will scream, I will shout, the stuff that Joseph, but I do that in the privacy of my own vehicle. If I get out and I'm screaming at somebody, they're fucking hurting somebody right in front of me.
Yeah. No, you've always been on the phone when you've done it. And I always just thought that they pushed you to the point where they're not listening, they're telling you the same thing over and over again. And then you get really louder so you can explain your side of it. And maybe they'll listen, but
they'll probably talk over me, or that one of their favorite things to do is tell me a narrative of what they think might have, could have happened, or they try to, and either they insinuate it or they'll outright talk over you because they heard from their friend who abused you that you're supposed to, this officer who's their friend, you're supposed to turn him in to Adult Protective Services. They send you to Senior and Disabilities because they're the Adult Protective Services here. And then they're saying, well, that's not what happened. My friend said, hold on a second here. And it was actually not at the Senior and Disability Services where I had to deal with that. That was literally right next door to them at the Health and Human Services place. I've been to all of the services. None of them are doing their jobs, and it's all because it comes down to credibility. It has to be a credible accusation, so I need somebody to look at it and verify, hey, yes, that's very true. That is a threat against his life right there. That is his sister saying that her life is being threatened as well. Here's at least 11 different people who have been arrested for doing the things that Sean tried to tell you that they were doing to him and to his friends and family, and then later on they did it to somebody else who actually had a friend or family member who wasn't too much of a sissy to turn it in with them. So that's...
I can try.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I did give you my phone number, right? All right. I wrote it down.
Oh, okay.
I know you gave me yours.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, but I wrote it down on.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I don't know if it was my new phone or my old phone. I had a free cricket phone and I hated that phone and I could never do nothing with it. And people would call me, I wouldn't get it for 3 months. They text me, I never got it.
Well, this is
I
my
hated cricket.
this is my free cricket phone
Okay.
thing.
And I
Oh, let's write my name on it. John is easy to remember. And you seem to remember my name better than most people. I don't know why.
actually I never heard your name before.
Really?
Yeah, maybe you introduced me once, but I didn't remember it.
Yeah, the first time that I spoke with you at the end of the conversation, you used my name. I remembered that pretty well.
Oh yeah, but it was probably not too long just before that. I'm
Yep.
horrible with names.
Me too, and especially out here when we're constantly meeting new people.
Yeah, unless there's something that they have the same name as somebody I know that does something strange, and then I'll think, oh yeah, that person. Okay, now I know their name. Okay, let me put it in.
So those girls over there,
Okay, so how do you spell Sean?
SHAWN,
Okay, that's how I would spell.
those two girls over there, they might be boys, I don't know, it's a distance, but one of them screamed into the corner there twice. So I got out, I'm like trying to figure out what's happening. It sounded like somebody was, sound like, kind of blood curdling. So I tried to see if anyone was being harmed or anything like that, or abducted. I've had friends that were abducted that ended up dead, so obviously I'm going to be paranoid every time I hear that. Or just them screaming into the corner, I had a heart attack.
Yeah. Yeah, they do that a lot over there, but like you said, you don't know.
I also know well enough to be paranoid of it.
Yes. Yep. I put Sean Library, so I know. Other people I know from Helping Hands, I put HH on, so I know who they are. Okay.
Well, be safe and good luck with carrying your stuff up there.
Yeah, it's gonna take me a while. I have somebody that's gonna share it with me, but he wasn't there after I got it. I don't know why he didn't get his ass up earlier and come with me. I told him I'd be at the other park right across the street from where we stay, and he wasn't there. I don't know where. I'm not spending all my gas hunting for him. He probably went out and started getting his stuff. Well, he already has a key, but he doesn't know what storage unit or where.
All right, I was going to ask you, have you gone to First Christian Church for a gas voucher yet?
No, I've never asked for a gas voucher from anybody. I'm gonna have to now that I got the storage unit.
Yeah, I've had
ride
to
the
do that
bus
too.
I park here and ride the bus, and it's less than a mile from where I stay. I just sit here. I park here 7 days a week. So, and then I used to go out to Freddy's to charge the store on Saturday or on Sunday, and whatever day the library's closed. And then I just started doing the transit center. But yesterday, the transit center was locked, And so I went over to Goodspeed Park and I charged my phone. Got my headlights come on when I have my key on. And I had to have my key on to, my cigarette lighter would work. And it was almost dead. And then this guy goes, oh, I can fix the floorways and all that crap. Yeah. And then it was dead again. Got it started. I got it charged. And this here at night, it was turning red. And this was really not even there in the day. So I knew it was pulling from the battery and it would make it go dead overnight. Nobody would believe me. So I was just unhooking the battery. I didn't care. Well, last night, a guy that's going to trade me straight across for his 1 year newer, but it's not automatic. This one's a stick. And he unhooked it because he's an AC licensed, what is it called? Board certified AC repair guy. So he knows all about it. And he had his old car repoed, and so he found one that was in his price range, and he wants to stick so bad he's going to trade me straight across, no matter what my problems are. I asked him today, are you sure you still want to do this? He said, oh yeah, definitely. So as soon as I can clean my stuff out, he put it in, we can switch. And I have just enough money to change title.
I was just looking. We got matching headlights.
Oh, the tape.
Yep.
Yeah, there's only one thing holding it on, and I prefer to not having it dangling.
Right.
And it's funny, on his, the same side is out, or his passenger side, and he's pulling him straight. Yeah. So his passenger one's missing. He took it out, and he goes, we can take your passenger one off and put it on. I said, okay, because it's not a headlight or anything. I said, you never got into trouble for driving it without, that in there? He said, no. But I had a cop behind me this morning coming from storage. Oh, I went to Pacific Storage and they had it all locked up. I couldn't get in without a code. So I went back over to Goodspeed Park and called. And he was there and we were talking. And this is his from his car because he put mine in this part of the car when he put it back together at, like 10 o'clock last night. He says, he went and got his. He says, I said, no, you don't have to worry about it. I know it's in there. He goes, no, I'm going to leave it the same way I found it. But it's really funny because the floorways didn't go off. But now it doesn't make the noise inside the car now. It's so cool, that noise. He said, you're going to hear it forever. And I said, why? And he goes, in your head. I didn't have it last night. Yeah. And then he told me both my seats in the back will lay flat. They're just a little lump in the middle because of the rest that comes down.
Yeah.
And, or maybe the rest is
Mine are down.
Oh, you got a hole in yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing's falling apart.
For the windows that will go over it and down the door where it doesn't rain is that people will over, but is the big white bottle bags, but they're not clear. But you don't see through it anyway.
Oh, I can see through that.
Well, I mean, you have your stuff there.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, you're not seeing through there anyway. But that's what I did when this went down and it was crooked and I couldn't get it back up. I went over and asked for one of the white plastic bags that the store had. I said, I'll buy it. And they said, you have it. And I had it for a long time, and then somebody fixed my car and they took it. Probably threw it in the garbage. So I didn't want to go ask for another one. And now somebody's used my other windows the other day. They're going down right again, but pretty soon they'll start going cattywampy, and I won't use them. And his all works perfect as far as I can tell. It isn't really coming out. And he's probably, I would say, late 30s maybe. He looks younger, but I think with weight talks and stuff, he's probably in his late 30s. And he has a beautiful dog.
Here's what I was wondering. Them people out there paying $250 if they get disability money even.
Yeah.
They spend $250 to stay out there, and then they spend a lot of their time having to jump through the hoops that are required there and be there at certain times, right?
There, you can do them in town. You can do them at any meeting you want. Church councils that meet. You can go to AA, NA, DBA, anything. That's what DBA is. Yeah, there's like domestic abuse or if you any type of meeting with people, that counts.
And how many of those you got to do?
4 a week. And then there's 3
For
men.
a week?
Yeah, for a week. That's 7 days.
Holy shit!
Chores for 1 day. No, the chores mostly take 15 to 30 minutes. And you get an hour for everything, even if it's only 10, 15 minutes.
All right, I ain't got enough gas to go to most of these places more than maybe 3 or 4 of them right at the very beginning of the month, and then I have to make sure that I can still eat for the month.
Right. See, and they have food there. You can eat there out of their food, out of food bank.
No, I mean, as in, my basic necessities have to be
I
met.
get that. But yeah.
But the thing with them is that that's not happening. If it was going to happen, it would have happened already with the helping hands. But the thing is, like, for going around to all of these different appointments that I'm already going to, and then to have more on top of it, and the fact that it does eat up gas, and then there's the fact that I have to use my vehicle to charge up my electronics. There's a lot of places that I'm not allowed to go anymore because I was victimized there, and then I was told it's my fault because I brought it there. I'm like, these people, Robert Farnsworth, not my fault. Molly, not my fault. That lady, Vicky, also not my fault. Her friend Nick, also not my fault.
Yeah, you told me that.
Like, you know, I don't hate any of these people. Nick is obviously violent. That's scary. The other thing is, Christian, he scares me. He threatens to kill people, and if I tell him no, he breaks stuff. He disappeared again?
I heard. No one's seen. He came by and saw Patricia within the last probably month and a half when she was still homeless out there.
Well, Chris was running around telling everybody in town that Christian was sucking dick for crack.
Who was saying that?
Chris Stafford, the guy who runs the laundromat down there.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Now, some of the stuff that Christian was doing that he was telling me is absolutely true. I mean, he was smoking meth underneath a blanket. He was vandalizing things. He did absolutely pee on my vehicle. He was absolutely threatening to kill those kids down there at the top of his lungs. You know, that stuff actually did happen, and I recorded nearly all of it. But the thing is that when you go running around, especially in a town like this, especially in a homeless community, and you're running around telling people that this guy who's still got a bit of pride, no doubt, you're running around telling people that he's having to be a prostitute for drugs.
Well, if that's what if they don't have no money and they want drugs, that's what they do. That's what everybody does on the street. That wants drugs that no matter.
That wants them no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can tell them to eat probably a pile of crap, and if they were jonesing enough, they probably do it.
Yeah.
If you were going to give them a hit or a hit, the hit wouldn't be enough probably.
But I've definitely seen very, very much that kind of stuff. I've also seen what happens when somebody wastes it. Yeah. I saw my mom blow her nose after snorting a line once, and the guy that was with her made her eat the Kleenex. I mean, you don't waste it. I've never touched the stuff.
He didn't do that for me. Crystal meth, it was long before or after my time. I don't know. But I actually personally saw people make coke into crack, and that was before it was coke crack. And I seen them use everything in a week. And then they go, "You want some?" Why? Because I saw what happened to you. The only reason I saw what happened to them was because they had 3 babies, and her brothers came up and were doing it with them, and they lost their jobs, everything. And I said, I don't want to do what you're doing. I don't want to become what you're becoming.
With the thing with Chris saying that about Christian, that he was doing that, that's just dehumanizing to go running around spreading rumors like that. And when a guy does that, you know what we're told? We're told not to act like a woman. Do not act like a woman. Stop acting like a woman. I don't want to hear your gossip. I don't want to hear your drama. You're a man. Pull up your fucking big boy panties, cinch up your balls, get back on the fucking horse.
Unless it's a child that he's doing it with, then it's none of your business. If they're doing it in front of you, then you call the cops and say they're indecently doing things they shouldn't be doing. And you shouldn't be telling anybody and everybody. You don't.
If they're actually doing something that is immoral and wrong, that is harmful to them or harmful to others, He claims that all he saw was Christian riding around in a vehicle with some guy who's got a nice fancy car. He knows the guy who owns the nice fancy car, but he's running around saying that Christian has to blow this guy for drugs, and I'm like, well, dude, when I say something, I've got proof of it. I recorded it. I don't just believe everybody who tells me a story.
He evidently is not afraid of Christian. Because why would you say that to anybody is true or not? It makes no sense. Unless he knew that you wouldn't go talk to them because that's what's going on.
Yep, and that's where gaslighting comes in too.
Yes.
Christian had, or not Christian, Chris Stafford, he had a problem with that Amanda girl. And now, I don't know if it's true or not, which is the thing that bugs me the most, is that yes, she's on drugs. Yes, she admits to being an addict. But he's saying that she held a gun to his head and made him drive around all over the place and stuff like that. And he also said that she's got herpes. And that's the kind of stuff that a guy says when a girl doesn't touch his nuts. When she says no. Whereas my situation, I get treated like, because I was taken advantage of, that I must have been a person like that. Now, I've also been trained to know the signs because I fucking grew up in the system.
Yeah, I know there's grooming questions and the way the boys sound. My daughter married this guy, and he found out before she got married, she's still married, that he's a registered sex offender. The girl was 15, he was 29. They were talking about it online, and then they hooked up, and then they talked about it online. He got arrested. And she has 2 teenage daughters. And she married him. She goes, well, Mom, you don't understand. I've done all the research. As soon as we're married, it's cool. He can be around my daughters. No, he can't until they're 18. He can't be around any minor children until 18. She got kicked out of her apartment once they got married because he can't live there. And so now they're living with either his mom or dad or grandma. Once they kick him out, they're going to be somewhere, who knows. She has good money, but no one's going to rent to him. And the cops, he has to change his address with the cops. They follow up.
And that's the problem with people who are on drugs, women who want to insinuate that a man might when he says no. There's been a couple of situations in the Hood River where it was blatant and obvious. A lot of the stuff that I have to turn in, I could literally show you the conversations between me and Natalie. I mean, you would understand where the issue was. She thought she was in love with me, but also I get to deal with people's assumptions of, like, I'm ugly. A girl's not going to have a crush on me. No, girls have crushes on nice guys, okay? Women get different taste.
Yeah, you look at that person, oh, that's not my type. But the next, their best friend or someone that walks down the street, those aren't the good people. Some of them don't care what you look like. They just want somebody in their life that can help them with something. I know a lady that lives with people and she falls in love with them right away and all this stuff. And then she'll drop them as soon as they're not there to help her, and she'll jump onto somebody else. So everybody knows that. So if you don't like that, then don't go either.
Exactly.
The same with the guy. If they start treating you badly or start talking, any direction you don't agree with, don't be with them because it's just going to get worse and worse. It's better to get away before.
I drove 1,700 miles to Virginia because Natalie was going to kill herself.
Right.
I drove 1,700 miles away because her family wanted to pretend that I might hurt them.
Right.
So, in both of those situations, I did what someone who cares about you will do.
More than anybody else would have done.
And the thing is, I was treated like I was a stalker. So if I showed you the conversations between me and Natalie, you'd realize, first of all, I fucking saved her ass and her sisters more than once. You'd also realize why she thought she was in love with me. And you'd also realize that when shit went to hell, it was over.
Guy and you didn't take advantage of them, you didn't manipulate them.
Yeah.
Gaslight them. See, most people don't realize what gaslighting is. I didn't know it was called gaslighting. But once I read it, I went, wow, I've been around that my whole life. But I've learned at a young age. Yeah, people that say and do those kind of things, get away from them because you know the next step and the next step and the next step.
In a big city, you can absolutely move on to another group in most cases.
Right.
In a small town, you can't do that.
No, you have to move.
Oh.
I've lived in a lot of towns. But that's because of my parents. My dad worked at Town Silverback and he could do anything at any of the mills. and they hired him out for a year or two at a time. My mom worked in either nursing homes or hospitals, so she could go anywhere. So I mean, he get extra money for driving. They pay our moving, and so I got that wanderlust. If shit starts just, but we lived in a lot of little towns because they have a lot of sawmills in little towns, and we'd always come back to Columbia City and stuff. So I don't know anybody that lives anywhere in St. Helens now, but I was, third grade up, well, first grade up, I was there. Only a couple years I was away, but I don't know anybody now. I don't know any of them, but I didn't miss anybody when I left. I mean, if I did, I still called them. I went to visit them.
That's how my whole family is about Nebraska. They're like, I left Nebraska. Everything I ever wanted to see of Nebraska, I saw in my rearview mirror.
Right? Yeah, I went and helped my sister for a year. We never got along, and we were totally opposite. If I said something, she'd get pissed about, like, she loves Krispy Kremes, and I said I like Voodoo Donuts much better because it doesn't leave the grease on the top of my mouth. And she blew up over it and stuff. And I just said, I'm not going to change. You're not going to change. I need to go. And I told my brother-in-law, I said, I'm sorry. I was just there to help her. She fell, call somebody because she can't move to a phone. I could, help her maybe go to the bathroom, whatever. And it just wasn't worth it. Okay, I got to go or I'm never going to get nothing done.
I noticed that, but I also didn't want to be rude because all of your information is useful.
Yeah. Does my car start?
Stuff may not seem so, but it gives me a background and helps me to better understand you. Heck yes.
It might not start for another hour after I shut it off, but I never know.
Same thing with mine. It might overheat.
Well, mine don't overheat. I have a exhaust leak. I think that's what does it. Okay. I better go.